Hello, everyone, and warm welcome to the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, where we're previewing 3 meetings for you, not in their entirety, of course, but the feature races across 2 excellent days racing. That is hot off the back of a really good couple of weeks on the Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast. 9 individual winners put up for you, few of them best bets, few of them at big old prices as well. And the majority of them by the team that join me here, Adele Mulrennan, Steve Jones and Declan Rix. Valuator Steve Jones, ITV Racing's Adele Mulrennan, and at theraces.com's Declan Rix to give them their full introductions. Looking ahead to what is a really good weekend of racing, we're going to start with the Irish stuff, which has cut up, I'm afraid to say. Decks have just about come out when we're recording this, so we know what is running. We've got some quality on show, but not a huge amount of depth across those 3 Grade 1 races. As far as the action from Newcastle and Newbury on Saturday goes, though, it is very competitive and there'll be plenty of bets coming your way there. I think we should get stuck straight into the action. There aren't going to be a plethora of bets coming your way as far as the 3 Irish Grade 1s go, but there's plenty to discuss. And we'll start with the Royal Bond Novices Hurdle. That's the opening Grade 1 at Fairyhouse on Friday. Adele, I know you're a bit lighter on this contest, as am I. Jonesy, you can kick us off with this. Jonesy, you were in absolutely flying form last week. Well done. You can definitely afford a haircut now.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's interesting, the stuff on Sunday at Fairyhouse, and it did amuse me a little bit that it's the Royal Bond Novice Hurdle, because I don't want to give the game away too much, but it's a big weekend for Tom George over at Newbury and at Newcastle. And he worked as a teenager for Arthur Moore and actually looked after Royal Bond. And Jenny Pittman was very derogatory about the ageing Royal Bond in some race. I think it may have been Borough Hill Lad or something like that. Anyway, it really, really upset Tom, and he wrote a very strongly worded letter to the Sporting Life that I know that he still keeps. So it did amuse me that it's the Royal Bond on this weekend. But it's a good race, and it's got a history of throwing up really good horses. And this year, I think it's going to throw up another one. It's interesting that it's hardly unusual to see the 2 big stables, Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott, going head to head in a race like this. But Ngolo, who's Willie Mullins' only runner in the race, I thought he wants a bit further than 2 miles now, and I'm surprised that they've not gone up in trip with him. So I think that the door is certainly open for Ballyadam, even though in races like this, I tend to shy away from horses that have only run once over hurdles, albeit winning impressively, as Ballyadam did at Down Royal when beating Colonel Mustard, one for Cluedo fans, that one. But winning that maiden hurdle really well. Looks a smart horse, as he did in bumper races previously last season. So even though the inexperience is a slight concern for me with a horse that is going to be pretty short, I think Ballyadam is going to be hard to beat.
Just to come to Rixio, a question about Ballyadam off the back of what Jonesy's saying. Is there a danger, you think, that given he's following in Envoy Allen's footsteps with the colours, with the likely path I think he's going to take as well, and the hype with which he sort of came to racing, Jamie Codd had said about him how good he was, etc., before he even made an appearance and got beaten in his bumper before going on and winning one. Do you think that he's always going to be a slightly overbet horse, Rixie, or like Jonesy says, do you think there could still be a bit of value about him here based upon what he did first time over hurdles last time?
I suppose it probably depends really what Willie runs in the races against him, doesn't it? Sometimes She Wears It Wells was reportedly going to run here of Willie's, but she's been taken out, and that looked Ballyadam's biggest danger. So it looks like the race is cut up from that point of view. Yeah, look, I do think probably you're right, and a lot of these horses are overbet. We see it a lot of the time with Aidan O'Brien's on the flat. Sometimes even with John Gosden's and that, and racing fans kind of love favorites. They love superstars, and they just, they can't see any of these horses losing a lot of the time. But as we all know, this is horse racing and anything can happen. But yeah, I don't know. What price is he there at the moment now, Tom, after declarations have come out?
He's knocking around about the even money mark now. So
I would think even money is fair to be. I think he's definitely the most likely winner of this race now, obviously, as the market suggests. Yeah, but anyway,
you've got Castmate in there about 7.0, who's next in, of course, for a yard in form, Noel Mead, and he's looked a very good horse his last couple of starts. But then I mean, he obviously had a major setback to be off for so long. So he's looked very good his last 2 starts. And I think they only tried 2.5 last time because Noel was saying he wanted to get him into a rated race before trying graded company. But I think they see him as a 2-miler. But whether he's up to the class of Ballyadam remains to be seen.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, he's coming back down in trip as well on probably a quicker track as well. So whether he deserves to be second favourite, I would probably question that. So, but look, with all these races, I think one of the most underused markets in racing is the betting without favourite market. You know, if you get these races where favourites take a massive chunk out of the race, if you take them out of the equation as a betting heat, it opens it up a lot more. So maybe what I would suggest maybe is if people wanted to back Ballyadam at even money, I would suggest even money is pretty fair. I think he probably should be shorter. But if that isn't the way you want to go, you could take him out of the equation and maybe back something else in the race.
Anything to add on the Royal Bond? I know it pretty much centres around Ballyadam. I thought if the ground comes up, is anybody working on decent ground at Fairyhouse? Is anybody? I was sort of working on maybe good to soft come racing time. I thought if it was any better than that, Annexation I think is a horse who does want a sound surface. So I thought could be interesting probably with the without market. But what are we all working on ground wise for Fairyhouse? Adele, just on a general Fairyhouse point, start with you ground wise.
I would just be going on kind of soft ground, you know, a little bit quicker maybe. I think it'll be just nice. It'll be just good time of year ground. I think it'll be not much slower. I think it'll be just nice.
Rixie, you working on sort of soft but no worse than that? Yeah.
I think maybe, as the Irish like to call it, yielding ground could be what we're looking at. So considering, you know, we're coming into December, I think the ground's going to be no excuse for any of these national hunt horses. It's probably, you know, there are some horses who probably wanted a bit quicker, but you know, I don't think the ground is going to be an excuse for many horses. Annexation, who you mentioned there, the ground's looks like it's going to be a lot quicker than he ran on the day at Navan, and Fairyhouse is also a much quicker track than Navan. I think that's going to suit him ideally, and I'd agree with you actually. If people didn't want to back Ballyadam because he's a short price, I'd be looking at the Henry de Bromhead horse without him, and I think Steve has got him very right. He looks like a horse who could go up and trip, although he could be a supreme horse down the line if he continues to improve, because to me he looks like a big high cruiser who jumps well and will go well off an end-to-end gallop. But yeah, look, to answer your question, I don't think the ground's going to be an excuse for many horses this weekend.
Oh, we've lost Tom Stanley by the looks of it, which I was going to say. I do the same as Tom. Is when I'm looking at the ground, I look what the official going is, and then I look out the window, even if I'm 200 miles away. And it's not really advisable when you're in Dubai to look out the window and think it's going to dry out, like Tom clearly did if he thinks it's on top.
Tom was working on good to firm, I think. Yeah,
I think he might have been, or even the dirt, maybe, if he was in one of the racecourse hotels. But yeah, it's an interesting race, the Royal Bond, but it's nice to see that there are other yards than the Mullins and the Elliots in there with Noel Mead and Henry de Bromhead in that. But we see later on in one of the other races, Envoy Allen, that there's only 2 stables represented, and there was only 2, Joseph O'Brien and Gordon Elliott, in the entries. So that's got to be a worry, hasn't it, Rixie?
Yeah, no, it does. It's and you know, I think there's been a lot of chat around this lately, as well as the kind of the lack of competition in jumps racing, you know, not only in Ireland, but in Britain as well. You know, Envoy Allen is obviously scared off a lot of these horses here. And, you know, it's kind of mad when you talk about Noel Mead, you know, a multiple former champion trainer in Ireland, kind of him as the underdog now in Irish racing, that you want to see the likes of him do well in the jumps game and Joseph O'Brien to do well in the jumps game, just so they take on the might of Gordon Elliott and Willie Mullins. It just goes to show you how powerful those 2 stables are at the moment. And obviously Henry de Bromhead. And probably it's another point as well, kind of that going back years ago, I think it was very good for Irish racing that the Gigginstown horses were taken away from Willie Mullins just from a competition factor. Can you imagine now if all those horses, those good Gigginstown horses, were still in with Willie's? And, you know, no disrespect to Willie or his team, but we just... as punters and as race fans, competition is good, and that's the sport thrives off that.
It's integral.
We've seen it already this year. You know, you do get horses, you do scare other horses off, and it's still quite early on in the season. There's still plenty of races to aim at. So it's just from a punting point of view, you obviously don't get, you know, much value unless you're going to look elsewhere. But
yeah, we can stop talking about Tom now. He's back.
My ears were burning.
What, did you forget to put 20p in the meter again, or what's the story?
It's gone. That's it. I've topped it up. Let's kick on to the Drinmore. I mean, this race last year.
Move on.
This race last year was an absolute belter. It was just fantastic. Now this year it's all about one horse who is a very warm order and is going to be, quite rightly, I think, based upon what he's done. And we've all agreed that we don't have an official bet in this very small field, standout, favourite, etc. But I thought it was still worth just talking about the horse and opening him up to the season. Richie, just to start with you, is Envoy Allen the second coming, the horse they build as whatever he did over hurdles, he was always going to be a better chaser? Are you a buyer of the hype?
Yeah, well, I suppose in some ways, you know, he has lived up to the hype. You know, he's already won a champion bumper, and he's already won a Ballymore, so he is living up to the hype. But superstars are made in open championship racing. You know, champion hurdles, champion chases, Gold Cups. Even as a fan of the Ryanair, I would say the Ryanair. But yeah, look, I'm when I'm assessing form in horses, I try to be as miserable as possible, just so you don't get drawn into the hype. And I think that's important. I think it's a hard balance in that, because I think one thing we do poorly in this part of the world is promotion of our good horses compared to the likes of Australia and whatnot. And it's a fine balance between promotion and, you know, kind of people going overboard. Like, this horse is unbeaten so far, so, you know, I think the hype is real. Anybody who watched his chase debut at Down Royal, I thought that was spectacular. Okay, you know, he was odds on, and he was we know on hurdles form, he was much the best horse in the race. But to wait to see him ping those last 2 or 3 fences, and then in between this last and the second last, quicken up like a smart flat horse and absolutely wing the last, you know, that was incredible. You know, he I want to say he's the second coming, you know, but this is horse racing. You just don't know what can happen. Anything can happen. So it's a fine balance. But look, he does look at a potentially special horse. But for me, the special horses are made in open championship race, and he's still a novice. So next year, if he wins a Queen Mother Champion Chase or a Gold Cup, even though I think he's too quick for a Gold Cup, then we can maybe potentially talk about special.
Got a Ryanair superstar in the making here, just what everyone wants. Adele, from your experience of race riding, albeit perhaps not in races like a Drinmore, but when you got a horse like this who goes out on chase debut and, as some people would say, was whatever he was, 7s on and beating trees, you know, how much did we learn about him when he's coming into a race like this, where he's perhaps going to be asked to go a yard quicker and just jump against better horses? Was it as impressive as it seemed on the face of it for you last time?
It was hugely impressive. It's the fact that Jack kind of just left him to it and let him find his own feet. And he's just so athletic. The way he jumps his fences, you know, for a novice, the way he's able to go long, go short, is fantastic for a horse, you know, who's still a novice over fences. He just took to it so well. It's something you would want to have saw, you know, on his chase debut, looking for a horse, you know, being so spectacular. I thought it was a huge performance from him. I thought Jack gave him a lovely ride, just kind of left him alone and just let him find his own feet. You would, at his price, you would want to expect the same kind of performance again, though, wouldn't you, really, at that price?
Yeah, I think all of us are in agreement. We're going to sit and watch it as a spectacle. Do you have anything to add about Envoy Allen, Jonesy, based upon what you've seen or what you expect he's going to do this year?
No, I'm very much in agreement with Rixie that he's only won bumpers, novice hurdles, and a novice chase. So although the potential is obvious for everybody, even me, I've seen so many of these horses hyped up as novices and then fail to make the grade. It's just nice to see a horse progress through. And I think the fact that he won so impressively last time, the opposition wasn't really come into it. Like Adele said, he just jumped so well. He had won a point to point, but I never really take that as given that they can jump proper fences at a place like Fairyhouse or Down Royal. And it's just nice to see a horse like this progress. Sometimes it's not all about betting. There's so many races to bet on that sometimes it's just nice to see a horse with this potential. And I hope he becomes a champion, because he's got everything there to say that he might be. But it is early days. It's just nice to see him run on Sunday. So looking forward to it.
That's our loose thoughts on Envoy Allen, not as a betting prospect, but I'll echo what the guys said. I just thought the way he went about it, the way he was clever at his fences. I think he'd done quite a lot coming into the race, so maybe that was to be expected, but he does look the real deal. It sort of had that Sam Crow feeling as when he was a novice, but of course Sam Crow then had an extra season over hurdles, and on this day was running in the fighting fifth. And well, he still won at Cheltenham last season, but there you go. But this horse, I think, is the real deal from Gordon Elliott's yard, and we get to see him in a small field Drinmore. The 235 is the Hatton's Grace. We've got last year's winner in the form of Honeysuckle. She's looking to do what Apple's Jade did and win it back-to-back years. Apple's Jade won it 3 times and was beaten last year by Honeysuckle. She is odds on at the top of that betting, around about the 1.7 mark at the moment. I think that's fair enough based upon what she did last year, what she did at the Cheltenham Festival as well. I think she'll sit just in behind the pace and pick them off ultimately. And I think she's the right horse towards the head of the betting. Adele, kick us off with this. Are you a supporter of her at the top of the market, or are you looking to take her on, Honeysuckle?
No, I've always been a massive supporter of her. Backed her at Cheltenham as well. Rachel gets on so well with her. She knows her inside out. She ticks every box for me. She sets a massive standard on form, trips fine, ground's fine, track's fine. She's still only 6. I still think the sky's the limit with her. We still really don't know where we're at. After Cheltenham, I think everyone was kind of wanting to see more of her. So for me, she's, the standout one for me in this race. She's the one I would be having top on my shortlist. Honeysuckle, I think, is the one to go with.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think actually she's a fair enough price as well. I don't think she should be any bigger than that. One thing that's massively in her favour, Rixie, is that she seems to go fresh. For all she had a race at this track when coming and winning this last year. She does half like Fairyhouse as well. Is there something specific about the track you think that plays to her strengths?
Sorry there. I think I had some poltergeist in there that muted my mic. Apologies. No, I don't think there's anything specific about Fairyhouse. I just think she's a class horse, and class horses tend to run well anywhere. She's won at Leopardstown, won at Fairyhouse, won at Cheltenham. She's just a very good horse, and she obviously gets a £7 mare's allowance. And when you're as good as her, even though I don't think she's like a superstar by any means in terms of ratings, but she's got that £7 in her back pocket every time she runs against geldings, and that's a big advantage. So she shouldn't want for fitness either. Henry de Bromhead can get his horses fit first time out. It was interestingly, after Notebook won last weekend, he was clearly fit to win first time up. Henry de Bromhead said, well, no, these horses, the good horses only seem to run 3, 4, 5 times a year. So I might as well get them fit for their races. And so I don't think she'll lack for fitness here. And she's proven she can go well fresh. So yeah, look, it's gonna take she's gonna have to underperform badly, I think, to lose this.
Yeah, I agree, to be honest. I thought she was given a fantastic ride. You said that she gets on well with Rachel Blackmore, Adele. But I think the ride that she got at Cheltenham was incredible. The Mullins 3 seemed to be all looking at each other, wanting to sort themselves out. And she snuck up the inside and rode them to sleep a little bit. So she's just got everything going for her, Honeysuckle. She obviously won the Irish Champion Hurdle in February over 2 miles. But I think there's no doubt that 2.5's even better for her. So she is a very, very smart horse, and like you say, Rixie, that £7 in Grade 1 races, I always think that's a bit unfair. You just want to see horses compete on level terms, and we've seen it on the flat with Enable, where some races you think, oh, at the weights she wouldn't have won, but actually you think, well, she probably would have won, but because of the advantage of the sex allowance, then you're getting something. You want to see the best horses compete on level terms in Grade 1s, in my opinion. And I would still be with Honeysuckle. Old Super Sunday's in there. I backed him in the Champion Hurdle last year, which didn't look particularly brilliant afterwards, but he's been around a bit, and 2.5 is his trip. So I wouldn't be surprised if with that run under his belt this season, he's coming in a couple of weeks after finishing last behind Abracadabra at Punchestown, but that was 2 miles, and I think these days especially wants 2.5. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Super Sunday run well, but to put it up to Honeysuckle, not so sure.
He was actually the horse at the prices I was maybe looking at to bet without Honeysuckle, because he's physically, he's quite a big, gross, kind of stuffy horse, and he improves with his runs. Okay, he's probably not getting any better now, is he? But, he's going to take on, Bacardi's is having his first run. Beacon Edge is maybe not that good. Kraken Smart he can beat. Fury Road, is he going to be as good over this trip, kind of on a quicker track, on quicker ground as he was the last day? Ronald Pump looks a 3 miler, ran very well in the Stayers Hurdle last year. So I was just wondering, with Robbie Power coming back over at the prices, could he maybe, if everything drops right for him, could he maybe be the kind of value angle to finish second to Honeysuckle? So I'll be interested in what do you fancy, Adele? What were you looking at here? Are you all about Honeysuckle?
Yeah, definitely. She's one of my favourite horses, and I've been looking forward to hitting the track again. But I thought Tom might have had a different one this race, or maybe he was. Are you still with Are you with Honeysuckle as well, Tom, or did you have a different angle for this race? I thought you.
No. I'm very much with her. Very much with Honeysuckle. I thought she was almost value at those prices. I'm
value at that. Yeah.
I'm on board with her. I think the way before Dex, I was looking to take her on, and then given what's showing up, I think she'll just sit in behind and pick them off. So I think she's very much the play, Honeysuckle, in that, albeit at a warm order and not a normal bet I'd have. But I might look to get her on with one of the multiples on the Matchbook website or something, and put her in with something else across the cards, which we'll get stuck into now. As far as the Irish action goes, as we said, it's a little bit, it's not as competitive as it was last year, but horse is well worth discussing. As far as the Saturday action goes, well, it's very strong, typically strong as well. The Fighting Fifth, I love this race. It's produced a few surprises over the years, and we've had some brilliant winners of it as well. I want to start with Rixie here, because this is the horse that Rixie was just so modest about Epatante last year when he put her up a huge old price for the Champion Hurdle. And I'm very much team favourite this week. She's a fair price, I thought, Epatante here.
Yeah, well, what price have the Matchbook guys got her there at the moment, Tom?
Well, did you think she'd be odds against or odds on? Was going to be my question to you.
Oh, odds on.
You thought she'd be odds on?
Yeah, no, she should definitely be odds on.
What's the biggest price that? What's the price that you take that's on the cusp of not taking, if you know what I mean? Let me get an up-to-date price for you, because she's just a lot bigger than I thought she'd be. Can we hear Rixie?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, got you back. So you can, at the moment, you're looking at 2.1. So odds against. I mean, I thought that was fair enough. Does that interest you enough?
Oh, that's a big price. That is a big price. But then again, as my brain always kind of works like this way, when something's too good to be true, what's going on here? Is there something we're missing? No, I think that's a big price, because she's not a big horse. I'd say Nikki said in the past, Nikki Henderson, that she's a horse that's easy to get fit. That does look a big price to me now. It does, especially with the ground. And just looking at the rate, even though it's a small field, we've got Cornerstone Lad and Not So Sleepy in here. thank God the two of those are running, especially Not So Sleepy, because from a tactical point of view, it doesn't look like it's going to get too messy. Last year's race was a bit of a mess, to be honest, although the ride that Cornerstone Lad got off Henry Brook was outstanding. We don't really want to see those kind of races at this level. For all, you've got to applaud the enterprise of Henry Brook last year. But those two horses in and on good.
Adele, go on, pick up from Rix. He's frozen in a lovely face there. That's very fetching.
I think it was last week I didn't do it, and you looked like you were picking your nose.
We managed to find Cornerstone Lad last year just because of the heavy ground, actually, and I think I just played him in the place market. If only I'd gone in the win market as well. But this is going to be different on this ground, isn't it?
It is. He's in great form, though, Cornerstone Lad. I've seen him schooling. He won at Redcar the final day, the Fat there. I was there that day. He looks in great nick. Like Rix was saying, though, having him in the race and Not So Sleepy, we should get some good pace. I think the best horse will win the race. I think we'll get a true run race. Epatante, she's classy. We know that. But I don't think you can overlook Cornerstone Lad at his price. What price is it? Because I think he's a big price for a place bet because he likes Newcastle. Billy Garrity rides him, who is, the leading conditional in the north at the moment. He's a good rider, Billy. He rides him out at Mickey Hammond's. He schooled him plenty as well. This will be a nice ride for him in this race. And I think, he's worth a little place bet.
34.0, and I think on the day you might be able to price up as well.
Big price. He's a big price, but I can't not mention him being, Yorkshire Raider and all. And as I said, I've seen him schooling. He looks really well. He's got a bit of speed as well. He'll Henry Brook gave him a great ride last year. Nicked the race. He's injured at the moment, so obviously he can't ride him. But it's a nice ride for Billy Gerry to pick on. Been really good experience for him as well. He's been riding on the flat this summer, but he's doing really well over the jumps. Leading conditional at the moment at Weatherby Racecourse, so he'll get a nice spin round. And I couldn't see why he wouldn't be placed. Given his price, given a little bit.
Would that be? So I know you're not against Epatante as such, but a place bet on Cornerstone Lad would be your sort of main player in the race.
I'm looking forward to watching Epatante, completely. But for me, I would have a place bet on him.
For me, Jonesy, I thought the biggest danger on this ground might be Silver Streak to Epatante. I don't think he'll beat her anyway. I think she's the player in the race. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's priced up wrong, to be honest, with Show Royal as second favourite. I think Silver Streak should be second. I wouldn't be surprised if Silver Streak beat Epatante. I really wouldn't. When you look last season, Silver Streak was only 5 lengths behind Epatante in the Christmas hurdle, and though Epatante was very impressive that day, and then Silver Streak was 6th in the champion hurdle, beaten about 12 lengths. Both those races came on soft ground, and although Silver Streak has learned to handle soft ground as the years go on, he is much, much better on good ground. And in this race last season, it didn't really work out for him because he likes to be held up. And as Adele said, Cornerstone Lad made all the running under a really good ride to win this race with Bouvedere, who had that dreadful piece of hurdle sticking out of his leg just on the coronet band. And Silver Streak didn't have the race run to suit, but was still only beaten 3 lengths on heavy ground that he doesn't really like in a muddling old race. Well, they're going to go a proper gallop in this with Cornerstone Lad and Not So Sleepy. They only know one way of running from the front. So that'll help set it up for the classier horses, in my opinion. And I think Silver Streak is one of those. He comes off the back of possibly a personal best when he thrashed Verdana Blue. Now, Verdana Blue's another horse of Nicky Henderson's who is very ground dependent, and the ground at Kempton last month was verging on good to firm. So she had her ground, and Silver Streak managed to give her the best part of a stone and a good thrashing. So I think this is a horse that's still thriving. And the fact that Silver Streak's been around a bit, I think people seem to think he's getting on a bit, but he's only 7. He's had a hell of a lot of racing and he's still getting better. And you look at his runs on good ground, officially good ground. And last time he won at Kempton, he won that same race the year before on good ground. He was beaten a neck in the Great Wood in 2018. and then he'd won that what used to be called the Swinton at Haydock, going back a couple of years. So he really has got a fantastic record on good ground. I would be massively with him on the place market, and I would also have a little bit to win because I think he's overpriced. I think what is he, about 7, something like that?
Yeah. 7.0. So he's third. I had him down as he should be second favourite. So I agree with you there. I'm just not sure. There's every chance I'll play both of them. I think, and because I think he should be shorter. He won the Swinton, as you say, the race that Evan Williams has farmed over the last few years. But I think that the point you make about him is absolutely the right one. It feels as though he's been around for a long time, but he so infrequently gets his ideal conditions, and I think he's going to get them here. And I think that's the point. He is a ground dependent horse. His trainer think.
You look at Sco Royal last time, who's come back from chasing, and he's another one that doesn't often get his ground. And he was probably very well handicapped in the Welsh Champion Hurdle when he beat Ballyandy, and then he's gone to Wincanton, and he was pretty impressive. He moved very well, like we know he does, and he beat Takani off level weights by 7 lengths. Well, if you look through Takani's form, you also come across Silver Streak, because last time at Kempton, Takani was 4th, beaten 8 lengths, getting £4. So even on that form line, that of the last runs of the pair, Silver Streak should be shorter in the betting, and I just can't understand why they're that way around.
Well, we know what Jonesy thinks, and we know what everyone thinks as well. Rixie, just to confirm, I think he's very much in the Epatante camp, thinking that that's a big price, a shade of odds against. Whether that'll be there on the day, I don't think it will, actually. I think she'll go off pretty warm odds on. We will see. Let's kick on to the first of the Newbury races. We're going to be looking at, apologies, we've got the Ladbrokes trophy in, but I can't remember the Ladbrokes name of this race. We're just calling it the Gerry Feilden, because that's what it is. And just look at Steve Jones. We're traditionalists on this programme. The Gerry Feilden has got, I've very rarely gone through a weekend's racing and been so backing of all the favourites or supportive of all the favourites. But I think, again, here, no, not for you, Jonesy. Go on then, Marie's Rock. What is against her here? Because I think she's a lovely prospect.
She might well be, but she is way, way, way too short in this race. And we were talking earlier about the Envoy Allen thing. This horse is only really running novice hurdles, and I know this is an intermediate hurdle of probably the highest profile intermediate hurdle, but it's still a handicap. And Marie's Rock, for me, she has been impressive, but she's done a lot wrong. She gets very worked up at the start, and she pulls very hard. I didn't see a lot of pace in this race, and on faster ground that she's got to handle. I know she won a bumper on good ground at Foss Lass, which was a pretty dreadful race. The second horse is rated about 90 something, I think, out of that. So she took well to hurdles. I thought at Haydock she was pretty impressive, but again she was getting the mare's allowance, so she was getting nearly a stone off the second. Albeit the con man is got a decent rating. But Marie's Rock had a lot in her favour in that race in December of last year. And then we only saw her once again over Christmas at Taunton, where they only jumped 4 hurdles. So I think she's only jumped 13 hurdles in public. She does get worked up beforehand. She does pull hard. And she's stepping into a race, a handicap for the first time, off a pretty lofty rating, considering what she's had in her favour weights-wise. I think off 141. What is she? Something like 2.5 to win the Gerry Feilden? Not for me. She's definitely the one I want to take on this weekend. She's had a wind operation as well, which some people say, oh, great, that'll solve all the problems. But you'd rather have a horse, surely, who didn't have wind problems to start with.
He's against her, Adele. I'm reading between the lines. He's against. Who do you like least, Marie's Rock or Lorena, Jonesy?
Poor old Lorena. She's now retired, and it doesn't surprise me one little bit, thankfully.
Adele, tell him he's trying to be too clever and he's swerving the obvious winner. Who do you like?
Well, I do understand, Steve's worries about Marie's Rock. Her wind operation, I wouldn't take it into too much consideration. She's been off a long time, so you're going to have to, more than likely she will have needed one. Sometimes, she had a stress fracture, so she will have been on box rest for a bit. So they will get a bit fatty in the wind because they stood there doing nothing. So she will have had a wind operation. Something like that wouldn't really bother me much. What would bother me though is what Steve said, is that she can be quite keen, and especially on a first run back. She might be even more anticipating things. So that would be my only worry. Love seeing Midland Park with horses of this calibre, because I used to, in my early days, I used to ride a few winners for Midland Park, and I used to do a little blog for them about Dandy Nichols horses that were going to be running over a few weeks coming up, and they were really back in the early days with Midland Park. So I love seeing the syndicate have horses of this calibre. But I think at the price, I would be looking for something at place value, just purely because on a first run back, I just have a feeling that she might be a bit too keen. And I think, she does tank a little bit in her races. So I'm looking for something with a bit more value for a place bet, which I have gone to Botox. Joshua Moore had 4 winners. Yes, was it yesterday? Joshua Moore had 4 winners, 3 for his dad. I love seeing jockeys like that do so well, because he works really hard. It's nice to see him well rewarded. But this horse hasn't done a lot wrong at all. And I think to win at Cheltenham, the way he did, it's a unique track. It's quite hard. I think he's got to be worth a place bet. What price is he? I was going to wonder what he was.
You 7.0 Botox,
Yeah, I would be going on a place bet. I don't think he's done a lot wrong, but he was quite impressive at Cheltenham last time as well. So he's the one that I think I'd be putting up at a bigger price for a place bet.
Win and place. I'm getting this. You have a little dabble in the win market as well.
Yeah.
Jonesy, who were you taking on the winner Marie's Rock with?
Well, I'm just surprised by Adele, because the one thing you don't need, Adele, is Botox. There's a few of us. There's a few of us that do, but you certainly don't. But I am going for Sebastopol, and I really fancy this horse's chances. Again, the ground is a big bonus. This horse has come out twice recently on softer ground. I think one of them was at Cheltenham. So Tom Lacey clearly saving this horse for better ground, and he's been rewarded this time. The other angle I like with Sebastopol is there isn't a lot of pace in there, and I think he might be allowed to make the running for Johnny Burke, even though he hasn't run for a good while, not since February. But that was up at Musselburgh when he was ridden from off the pace at a track like Musselburgh, where it's probably easier to be nearer the front. And I thought that wasn't a bad little performance from him off 136. So we sort of know he's capable of this sort of running up to this sort of rating. He went up £6 for that, but he had been ridden more prominently in his previous races. And if you go back, he did have form as a novice hurdler behind the likes of Thomas Darby and Alexia de Nuts. So he's always had that level of ability. We haven't seen an awful lot of him. Maybe that's because of the ground, because he does seem to like good ground. And I think he is a really good bet in this. I would probably have a little bit of place just as a kind of a saver, but I would go in on him for the win. I think he's overpriced. He must be about 9 or 10 on Matchbook, is he?
10.0, yeah.
10.0,
Tom Lacey,
that's fair enough.
I know he thinks he's got a proper horse. He had I don't know what he had the year before last. He had a major setback, which really frustrated the team. But I think they thought they had him back last year, and I think they were still frustrated he hasn't achieved more. Rixie, I confirmed that you would be a backer of Epatton at shades of odds against. As far as this contest goes, the Gerry Feilden, are you with the Nicky Henderson mare at the top of the market or against?
I'm struggling in some ways to work this mare out, Tom. I think the handicapper hasn't missed her, given her 141. But in saying that, I think she's just fundamentally, I think she's just a quicker horse. And I think she's taken on horses here like Botaz has, who might find this test a little sharp for him. Maybe the same with Time White, who I thought got clobbered too much by the handicapper the last time. So I'm undecided on her at the moment. But kind of the one thing with her is you can't get away from how highly the Henderson team rate her. They've held her in high regard for a long time now, and they were really gutted that she missed Cheltenham last year. I like her. She's a quick hurdler, and she does have gears now, this filly, and that could be enough to see her home here. But I'm like I said, I'm on the fence with her. I want to see her again, to be honest. So with that being the case, I thought the horse kind of at a bigger price that would be suited to the test would be Milkwood. He's a really strong travelling horse. I think he's an out and out 2-miler by the looks of it. He's going to get some nice ground to run on. He ran very well in the Welsh Champion hurdle. That's form now that looks very strong. So I thought he was the horse I would put up at the prices. I'd also, I might have the complete outsider of the field. He shaped a lot better than his finishing position suggests in the Welsh Champion hurdle, and he weakened quickly. And I think we know why he weakened quickly, because he's had a wind operation, and now he's got a first time tongue tie on. His market raising performance at the end of last season before we shut down was very, very impressive, and he just looks like a horse who's progressing. Whether he's handicapped to win a Gerry Feilden, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't be surprised if he fills the places. So I'm going to put 2 up against the hot favourite here. I'm going to back Milkwood win and place, and I'm going to do the same with Miller's Bank at a huge price. So those will be 2 against the field, and we'll see how we go.
Yeah, I think Miller's Bank, as you say, is going to be a big old price on the day as well. You can price up on what he is now as outsider of the field, and 7.0 for Milkwood, as Rixie says. I'm gonna stick with Team Boring and the obvious one. Look, perhaps she is short enough at 2.5, Marie's Rock, but after Taunton, I backed her for the mares, and I'd beaten the market, and then of course she missed the race. And then coming into this season, some of the marks of the horses that I had in my tracker, I looked at hers, and unlike most of you, I thought, hello, early 140s, what handicap's Nicky going to run her in? And then of course, seeing what he did with Epatante last year, I wondered if this was, and it's all lined up, and here she is. So I'm going to stick with her. I think she's a real deal. I think she's super quick. I think this ground will be ideal for her. I was hoping in handicap company she'd get enough pace to settle in behind, and I'm going to be very boring and go with her. Let's kick on to the feature as far as the handicaps this weekend go. The Ladbrokes Trophy. It's a great renewal. Vindication is a horse that I know Rixie and I have championed for many a year. And I think he's completely the wrong favourite for this, but there we go. Adele, let's start with you for the Ladbrokes Trophy.
Okay, so I've gone through like loads of stats for this race, and when you look through the kind of age, having previous course form, taking into consideration trip and everything like that, the horse that comes out on top is Copperhead, who I think if I had pulled up at Wetherby on prep run, I think would be a lot shorter. Given the fact I have a ginger head myself, a Copperhead, Scarlet, my daughter, this is one of the horses that I thought would run a big race in this. Was disappointing at Wetherby. If you can forgive him for that, then I think he could run a big race. He's a big price, I presume. I just think Vindication I think he's better right-handed, isn't he? Better the opposite way. So I'm just looking for something with more value, and I've pulled in everything that I can think of. Colin's got a great record in the race as well. So Copperhead is the one that comes out on top for me.
Yeah, 10.0. He's the horse who I thought I would probably back coming into this at the start of the season, because I knew that's where he was being aimed. And then it was so disappointing at Wetherby. I'm not sure where we are. A huge fan of the horse. So I backed at the festival and got that wrong as well. But there you go. Jonesy, what about you?
I now realise why that we've been positioned like this with Rixie and me on the bottom, because the Copperheads are on top. So I'm quite interested in Copperhead. I think I wouldn't worry me that he pulled up over hurdles at Wetherby, because he's not a hurdler, and that was quite a good race. But I thought he just maybe plateaued on his mark last season. He went through the ranks quite rapidly. I think this is a fantastic race. There might not be the Gold Cup winners in here that there has been going back in time, like the one man. I remember Sibton Abbey beating Jadami in this race, which no one could believe.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I think there's Perhaps not the Gold Cup superstar that you can get in here. Native River won it a few years ago, but there's certainly a very competitive field. And I mentioned earlier Tom George, and I think Black Op has got a lot going for him. He's a horse that has always had that ability. He was a Grade 1 winner over hurdles. He beat Lost in Translation in the Aintree Grand National meeting in that Grade 1 hurdle. I think it's the Mersey, isn't it, over 2.5. And then he took a little bit of time to warm to fences. He only ran twice over fences the season before last, and you might think, well, that's a little bit disappointing. Well, the first of them, he finished third, beaten 4 lengths by Defi de Soul and top of the game in that strange race where I think top of the game stood still at the start. And then the next time he ran in the Dipper, and he was beaten 7 lengths by Lost in Translation and Defi de Soul. Well, Black Op is off, I think, 150, and Lost in Translation and Defi de Soul are 170 horses, so that they weren't as bad as they looked those at the time, or it weren't as disappointing perhaps as they looked. And Black Op did take a bit of a time to work out how to jump fences, and I think he has certainly. It's clicked now. Johnny Burke certainly gets on very well with him. He might have beaten Champ. I thought Johnny Burke had the opportunity to put Champ through the rail at this meeting last year when Barry Geraghty was going to the water jump and sort of swerved round at the last minute. But then, of course, Champ went on to win the RSA. And Black Op's prep run at Carlisle was 4th behind Imperial Aura. And we saw what he did last week. And I think Black Op now needs the step up to this sort of distance. He was 2nd at Kempton in the Quarto Star on Boxing Day last year behind Slate House when the track was probably a little bit sharp for him. Newbury is his sort of track. If he stays 3 miles 2, which I think he's got every chance of doing, and he copes with the ground, I think he's got a lot in his favour. So I've come down on 2. I've come down on Black Op, and the other one I like is the horse that hasn't had his ground really for a long time. It's bottom in the weights, ran really well at Cheltenham last time, Cloth Cap. So Black Op I would go for win, and I would have a bit of place and win smaller stakes on Cloth Cap.
I think that's a very good case made for Black Op. I was going to ask you about the trip for him. He's unexposed over it, but you think it'll bring out the best in him. Rixie?
Yeah, look, this is a very, very competitive race. There's, I think there's 7 or 8 in here who I could see easily winning, to be honest. And kind of when in cases like this, I try and go for horses at bigger prices. Basically, that's all it's going to boil down to. So look, I think with Ballyoptic in their Vindication, Secret Investor, I-Right, Mr. Malarkey, and First Time Blinkers and 2 for Gold, it looks like there's going to be a bit of pace on here, and it's going to be on good ground. So I think you're going to need a horse who jumps well and has a decent ability to travel as well as stay. So look, at the prices I came down on 2. The main bet would actually be Mr. Malarkey, who I would probably have just about the best handicap horse in this field. Before the season beforehand, when it ended, after Cheltenham is finished, we always kind of think, who would be the Hennessy horse for next year? Mr. Malarkey was high on my list, but last season he was very disappointing. But this year he's come back, it looks like, in a little bit of form. I thought he shaped a hell of a lot better than the distance beaten at Ascot behind Regal Encore. Okay, look, he was beaten a long way, but at the time the Tizard horses weren't running well. I was encouraged how he went through the race. He seemed nice and bright. He jumped well, jumped out to his left a little bit, so I think he'd be happier going this way around again. And he probably just needed it at a time when the Tizard horses weren't firing. So I'm going to put him up at 1. He's a horse who can scare you sometimes because he's bone idle. He does absolutely nothing when he's in front. But when he's in good form and you give him a proper squeeze, he always comes alive and he's there for you. So I think that if the blinkers sharpen him up and improve him, with me being of the opinion that I think he's probably the best handicapped horse in the race. I think was he 16-1 or whatever there, maybe a little bit bigger with the guys at Matchbook. He'll do for me. Oh, he's higher again. Good stuff. And the other one I'd throw in just at a bigger price. I'm a little bit worried because he's had plenty of racing this year, but just with the way the revised weights were, look, I really like Secret Investor for the race, but he was another one of those horses at the top of the market. So I've just gone for value selections. He was behind Secret Investor at Chepstow. He was well beaten, but At the revised weights, he's getting a lot more weight, and he should be a lot closer. So just at the prices, I thought Potterman, he does a hell of a lot right. He ran a cracker at Wincanton the last day. Jumped well, looked like he got a little bit outpaced on the sharp track, so coming on a more galloping track might suit him. As I said, the worry is he's had plenty of racing, and whether this is going to be one race too many against classier horses, we don't know. But he jumps well, he travels, and he stays, and the Alan King team are in decent order. So I'll have 2 against the field, win in place, please.
Both of those 21.0. And just to bring up the 2, 4, 5, the 6th different horse we're putting up in this race. We've got to get it between us, surely. I love it when this happens. Basically, viewers and listeners are going to have to choose the selection they want to go with, which actually tends to be Adele's. So there you go. It does. That's how it
Wise
is.
choice.
I thought Kildesart had a cracking chance. Just one thing I always have in my mind in this race is that it's a very difficult race to win fresh. Alan King always said that, I think, and finally got it right with Smad Place. Ben Pauling, who's just hit a bit of...
me about Smad Place.
Ben Pauling's just hit a bit of form, and he ran this horse purposely giving him a prep. He had a couple of hurdles entries. I went for the Weatherby one just to give him a prep for this. He ran an absolute cracker back to Cheltenham when he finished second. Put him up on this as well, and he ran really well. He likes the track. The ground is perfect. I still think even £5 higher than Cheltenham, he could still be fairly treated. He's got that bit of class, and this has been very much the plan. They had to pull the national plug with him. I'm not sure that would have worked necessarily, but I think this is ideal. And I think he's a very good horse. So Kildesart for me at around about 8.0. We've got to get it right with one of the 6. That's the Ladbrokes Trophy. Move on to the Rehearsal Chase at Newcastle. Once again, Nicky Henderson with a short price favourite. Jonesy, you can go first with the Rehearsal. Pim or elsewhere?
Probably elsewhere. I find this the most confusing race of the whole day, to be honest. I know Pim was pretty impressive last time, but he only beat a horse that run once over fences if the cap fits, and I'm not sure that you want to be really judging him on that effort. He will like the ground, I suppose, and the piece of form that really stands out is his beating of Imperial Aura last December in a novice chase at Cheltenham. So he's always had a bit of class. He had a bit of class over hurdles, so you can see why it is. But the one I'm more interested in, and he's a bit shorter than I would have hoped, but Whatmore I thought ran really well at Ascot. He'll need a decent pace. Yes. He needs a bit of pace to run at, but it's a small stakes bet for me because I think he's a bit shorter than I would have certainly liked him to be. But he ran well at Cheltenham behind Imperial Aura, and then you go back and you come across a lot of horses that are running in the Ladbrokes Trophy, horses like 2 for Gold and Mr. Malarkey, and he's got form with them. I think he's got a decent chance, but small stakes.
Yeah, you're tepid on Whatmore, 5.0. I'll throw the question to you because you like him as well then, Rixie. Does he definitely stay this trip?
Yeah, I think he'll be fine as long as he gets some decent ground. He's actually a horse that I know pretty well because I liked him from his early days, but he was just way too keen to ever do himself justice. And when Henry, I think he stays this trip well enough. Newcastle on good ground. He ran on decent ground at Ascot the last day over a similar trip. I think Newcastle's probably a little bit more of a speed test than Ascot. I followed him for a while. He's always been way too keen, and he's still a little bit kind of buzzy, and he was a little bit buzzy the last day, but I think he has settled down a lot, and since he's settled down, he's able to stay this far. He's a very good jumper, this lad. He's well able to jump. Tom O'Brien takes over from Richard Johnson. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. The only thing I like Pim, but the only thing I'm a little bit worried about is there doesn't seem to be a lot of pace in this race, and Pim could get a little bit of a freebie up front. So I just hope Tom O'Brien doesn't give him too far of a head start is all. I just think Whatmore is a better handicapped horse than Pim on what we've seen. But in saying that, I think Pim is a little bit hard to get a handle on just because he looks a little bit idle and he takes a bit of stoking up and he looks to save a bit for himself. but he looks a stayer to me, Pim. You know, this down the line, he could maybe be a national horse for Nicky down the line. This fella, you know, Nicky hasn't won the Grand National yet. This could be a horse who could go well for him in that race. I just think Whatmore is better handicapped, and he might just have a better kind of closing kick. So I would actually be a lot more sweeter on him than Jonesy, and I think he'd probably be one of my better bets of the weekend. I think he's a value bet as well, to be honest. I think he should just marginally be favoured over Pim on what we know, but I have a lot of respect for Pim.
I'm going with Pim, and I think he is the right favourite, really based on that Imperial Aura form. And he did beat a very good horse in If the Cap Fits last time. And I think the angle with him is that he will get an easy lead, and Daryl Jacob will just say go and make it a test to suit him. I think he is a proper stayer, as Rixie says. He was always looking like he was going to be a serious horse, and he's never quite cut it. I think they would have thought that he wouldn't be running in handicaps at this stage, but here he is. And I think there's still just about enough juice left in that price for Pim. I think Nicky Henderson's going to have a great day wherever he is at Newcastle watching Newbury on the big screen, or Newbury watching Newcastle on the big screen. He'll be doing that sort of teary-eyed thing he normally does when he gets very excited by about 3 o'clock. So I think he's going to have
weep and brandy.
Those are the views of Declan Rix, not the Matchbook Betting Podcast.
Hey, I love a good brandy myself. I'm not slagging him. Nicky's the man. I love Nicky.
I love it.
He just looks like a man. He's got so much experience now. You'd think that the game wouldn't frighten the living shit out of him anymore, but it clearly does.
It's great. I love it as well. With an interview, Nicky will always make a great noise before it. He'll always go, rah! I love it. He's great. He's great. Brilliant. Anyway, right. Where were we? Yeah, I think he's going to have a good day wherever he's watching from. Normally Newbury, watching the big screen in Newcastle. Adele, bring us back to normality and sense.
I've gone for something completely different, and also because he's not a horse that we would usually see around, like if for a winter campaign, because he usually is kept busy through the summer, and that's Brave Eagle for a place bet. I think maybe been able that already. He's still got low mileage. He has got the first-time blinkers on, which I hope will kind of eke out a little bit more concentration. But he has won on softer ground. I know most of his wins are on good ground, but he has won on heavy ground in his early days in December. So a good solid 8th in the Ladbrokes Trophy last year. I think he's capable of hitting the frame in this race. So he's just a place bet for me. And I'm going to go on the fact that he's been kept for more of a winter campaign this time, because I think his owners are more the fact that he's kept busy through the summer. So just interesting to see him around this winter and see how he does.
9.0 could be an exciting horse to watch as well, Brave Eagle. 9.0 for him in the Rehearsal Chase. We're going to get this under the hour. So best bets. Here we go, people. Best bets for the weekend. Adele, you can kick us off. Who is your best bet this weekend? You tell me you're going to Wolves or something.
No, I'm not going to Wolverhampton, because Wolverhampton, oh no, that's just a place I don't like to be having a bet at. There's too many hard luck stories there. But I would like to stay in Yorkshire on Saturday if I could.
Please.
So Ashington, who ran well at Cheltenham, do you remember there was a fall in front of him and kind of just hampered him a little bit, while Max was another one who then he managed to recover a little bit. So while Max went on to win next time out. So he runs at Doncaster, Ashington, and I think it's around about 1:43 time-wise. But John Quinn had a nice winner at Wetherby the other day. He's got his jumpers in good form. He's my best bet for Saturday.
I love that. Ashington for John Quinn, and no prices as yet, but you'll be able to see them very shortly, no doubt, when they are up for that contest. And Adele's best bets have been in good form going around the tracks recently. Steve Jones, your best bet this weekend?
Of the races we've covered, Sebastopol, but I'm going to go off piste as well, if I may. Sticking at Newcastle, and I said it was a big weekend for Tom George. He's got a really nice horse called Oscar Robertson up at Newcastle in the Novice Handicap Chase. Won really a bizarre fashion at Hereford, where he was 1,000,000 to 1 and then stormed through over 2.5. He wants to go up in trip. I think he's going to be a really nice staying chaser. So Oscar Robertson for me in the 1:30 at Newcastle.
1:30 at Newcastle. Oscar Robertson for Steve Jones. Rixie, where are you going for your best bet this weekend?
I think I'm going to put up Whatmore. I think there's juice in his price. I think he's one of those beautiful each way, winning place, filthy bets that we like to have. I will be very disappointed if he is out with the 3, so I'll take him. In terms of a kind of a value bet at a bigger price, I do like Mr. Malarkey. I think with the Tizard team back in better order, you know, that to be honest, that the Ladbrokes Trophy this year could be 10s the field. So I think he's probably the best value bet.
And I'm terrified now because mine is Pim, but I really don't want to go head to head with Rixie because he could just, particularly if Rixie's had a brandy by 3 o'clock, he could be getting seriously bolshy on the WhatsApp.
Go on, Rixie.
Oh God, I'm going to go with Pim at 4.5. I think it's a great shout in a race that Nicky Henson's won before, the Rehearsal Chase, and I really hope Whatmore doesn't win, who I backed last time. There you go. No offence, Rixie. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. Adele, you can tell the builders have been very patient. They can get going again.
I don't think they even stopped.
No, they're not.
Hope no one else could.
Nice tea break.
Exactly. That's it from Team Ginger and Team Bottom of the Screen, whatever they are. Adele, thank you very much. Steve Jones, thank you very much. Declan Rix, thank you very much. Apologies for Rixie and I dropping in and out a couple of times. We are working remotely, working from home, working from wherever we are, and there's that's the way things are because there's a small matter of the global pandemic going on. So there you are. But hope you've enjoyed all the action that we've given you and previewed for you. 3 Grade 1s at Fairyhouse on Sunday and some excellent racing at Saturday, including that Ladbrokes Trophy. Hope we remain in good form as well. Let us know if you want to get in touch with anything we put up. By all means, do across social media. We will do our best to answer politely. That's it from Adele, from Rixie, and from Steve Jones. And best of luck to you this weekend. Bye for now.